Well, hello, everybody. We are once again joining you tonight to have a chat about some Dice Forsaken moments.
Yes, hello. Thank you for joining us again. Episode
Yep.
5, I believe.
Absolutely. Pretty good effort. We're further along than we thought we would get, eh?
Super stoked to be at episode 5. Episode 5 for the podcast and episode 2 for the Barons War.
Absolutely. Yeah, we're here tonight, as we said last time, to have a bit of a dig into what is, what's in the Barons War list, specifically the Western Europe retinue builder that is in the book, the main rule book.
Which, when this comes out, will probably be obsolete.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, by the time this is out, yeah, we've just discovered that book list may be a bit obsolete, but yeah.
We'll chat about that more later in
absolutely.
the podcast.
Yeah.
Before we get too deep into it, we should probably do the inevitable admin. If you're watching us on YouTube, please like and subscribe. We very much appreciate any support you guys give us. If you listen to us on Apple Podcast or Spotify Podcast, please give us a rating and leave us a review. And lastly, you can find us on Facebook under the Dice Forsaken Podcast. Flick us a like and keep up to date with what we're doing and podcast releases on there. Your few precious seconds helps us send our hobby jibber jabber to the world more effectively.
Nicely done, buddy. Almost like you read it off the script.
Read that word for word.
Yeah, nailing it.
I won't next time.
Well, we can't be too professional.
Nah. Hell no.
Professionality is not what this is about. This is about two nerds.
Hobby jibber jabber.
Yeah, jibber jabbering.
Yeah. All right, so
we're a month further into the year.
Yeah.
What
scarily.
is news? What have you been up to, Jono?
Well, I've cancelled my holiday due to the world ending, which means I have more time for hobby.
Absolutely. You can trade in spending lots of money on expensive hydrocarbon products, i.e. fuel, to spend it on
other expensive hydrocarbon products.
Little plastic men.
Yeah, that's right. We'll just swap one for the other.
Although you'd have to buy an awful lot of plastic crack to make up for the price difference in fuel to get to the East Coast.
Very much so, yes.
That would be a bit excessive.
We're not going that far. No, what's been happening this last month? I've been playing more Barons War, which has been good, which is our topic for tonight, so won't go into too much depth on that just yet. But yeah, I've got a few games of that in. I've been painting away. My 500-point retinue from the starter box is almost complete. I've got knights and foot sergeants to wash and do some metal on, so pretty stoked about that. I've started pottering away at a couple other Warhost figures and stuff as well as I go. So yeah, I've been building some random stuff. Don't ask me about that. Just random sidetrack things.
Fair enough.
Yeah, it's been a pretty good month for hobby for me. How about you, Jackson?
Look, I've Bolt Action WTC is coming up. So there's stuff happening there with training games and painting figures that I can't talk about, just to be that over-competitive Bolt Action player that everyone knows and loves. But look, there's been a bit of hobby for that. I've still been working away at the Orcs. So if anyone's been following the Facebook post, I keep putting up, little batches of 5 or 6 Orcs here and there, and been thoroughly enjoying that, including converting up a few of the old metal Orcs and the Medbury Orcs, just so I don't have any duplicates. So just kind of raiding and pillaging the bits box for some extra banners and, turning spearmen into axemen. And I stole some bits from one of our colleagues to swap some arms for different weapons and, all that fun stuff, few head swaps. But yeah, that's really been it on the safe hobby that I can talk about. However, we did actually have Skulls.
Yes,
Autumn Skulls, not that long ago. So we both played Bolt Action at that. How'd you go? What did you run and how'd you find Skulls?
Yeah, so Skulls, I had 4 opponents. I played 3 Japanese army and a French. I won 2 and I lost 2. Won my first 2, lost my second 2. Yeah, it was pretty tough games. The Japanese players were all using the new Armies of book. So they had some pretty strong armies. There was plenty of the one-man suicide teams, which sucked because obviously their dice don't count for VPs. Or not obviously, but their dice don't count for VPs, so that didn't help me with any of the secondaries or anything. But yeah, it was a good day. I had fun. It was a bit rough in the morning, but just a bit of a me thing in the first couple games, but got over that and had a couple good games. Well, had 4 good games, but the last 2 were a bit better in terms of my mental spot. So yeah.
How did you, what were you playing?
I played British. played British, of course. I played veteran British infantry supported by a couple of half tracks.
Nice. So no tanks or anything, just
lots of boots.
On
I can't remember my list exactly. It's been a few weekends since then, but pretty sure I was at 3 or 4 squads of vet riflemen. Might have had I had a commander unit as well. Yeah.
Yeah, nice.
Might have been 2.
Yeah, so you're kind of classic boots on the ground British
infantry.
Yeah,
but the difference was that I don't normally run veteran riflemen, standard British veteran. Well, they were guards as well. So that was good. It was a little bit British on easy mode because obviously vets are pretty tough and guards drop 2 pins. So beautiful.
Absolutely. How'd you find that?
Yeah, it was good. It was, I think it was I think I needed a bit of a change up, playing something a little bit different. And I'd been hitting my head against veteran infantry a lot. So sort of bit of the vindication of me taking them and them not dying was good. Yeah. How did you go?
Look, with WTC coming up, I just went, you know what? What's the fun list I can run? So I went with how many boots can I put on the ground? And I ran a recce platoon with some trucks in it, and I took kind of 6 squads of infantry, 3 inexperienced squads with rifles, and 3 10-man inexperienced squads with submachine guns in a Soviet list, of course. And then a couple of heavy mortars, a couple of medium mortars, and just kind of went, you know what, this is just going to be a bit of fun. It's a really satisfying feeling to pick up 20 dice and just erase a unit.
Getting your yogurt cup out
and
to roll them out of.
And someone goes, oh, they're only inexperienced. That won't hurt. Absolutely. Well, you're like, no, this is my first 10 dice. And then someone looks at you and you're like, cool. So that's actually 8 hits. Okay, now is my second 10 dice. I have another 7, which managed to irritate a few people. Sorry, Seb. But no, it was really good fun. Like the players pack really wasn't a super serious competitive pack. Some of the missions were a bit funky, a bit different out there using some of the HMG missions. So, you know, not the most balanced, but definitely, you know, kind of leaning more towards the fun side of things. So yeah, it was cool to go, you know what, I can't use this as WTC prep, so I'm not even going to bother. So I'm just going to run things that are fun. And 30 inexperienced submachine gunners was lots of fun.
Yeah, sick. Yeah.
Yeah, you know, I hit the dice cap at 18 dice Russian and I just had fun. And recce trucks are stacks of fun too. And like recce truck, and that was the other thing. I had 2 arty observers.
That's fun. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, yeah, they didn't actually kill all that much or pin all that much, but they were just fun.
Observers, you can't take them relying on them killing. You take them as a pin generator.
No, you take them.
And I know there's the whole...
You take them as a pin generator.
I know there's this whole thing about pins don't matter in V3, but they do. Like, they still hurt when you move and have a pin and you're hitting on 6s. You still fail your morale tests. Yeah, okay, that's easy to clear because you can rally. There is the potential to have more officers, though I still don't have more than 2 officers on the table.
And the thing is that you, even with the more units you have, you kind of find that there's not necessarily officers in all the places you like.
Unless you're taking like the higher officer.
That's really not a thing in Australia.
I haven't seen it a lot.
Like if you actually, and this is probably going to slip through into the more of the competitive side of things. If you go to Europe, every second list has one.
And I suppose they're doing that to get that officer buff across the table as much as possible.
And the snap 2s and some of the
and maybe that's the difference. Like when you hear the people, hear the people, like the Tommies and all that, they're talking about so many officers on the table. I don't really see that, but maybe that's the big difference for us is that we don't see that officer taken as the extra by himself to give the 12-inch bubble and the extra snap 2s.
Absolutely.
So.
Yeah, like even thinking back to CanCon, I don't think any of the top 10 lists had a company commander. I haven't seen any in the last couple of Skulls events we've had. I've played one a couple of times, and it's good. Like it's objectively a good unit to have in your army, and it's great if you're running all inexperienced. But yeah, I don't feel like it's an auto include. That's just a bit of a cultural difference, though, possibly. Anyway, though, enough talking about bolt action.
Yeah, moving on from bolt action. We've done our hobby catch-up. We've done our skulls. What's news? King John, this weekend coming as we record, which will probably be last weekend when this is released, which will be sometime in the past when you listen to this.
Yeah, so apparently it's been after lots of it's coming. The first sort of insights have been shown on the various Wargames Atlantic YouTube channels. So there's a couple of interviews up there now to listen to. It's being released at Salute, which is a big games show in England over the weekend on the 11th. And it will go up for pre-order or order. Wasn't very clear on the same weekend for everyone else who's not there. So you and I will be putting an order in.
We will indeed be putting an order in, probably a few others as well. So yeah, it looks really good. The previews all look great. They have got heaps of, another 7 retinues in there or something, 6 retinues in there.
And as we're about to talk about, the retinue in the core book is also being updated with the King John book to correct so the retinue in the book is just the core feudal European England and France in the 13th century. The changes will include the FAQs and a few other bits and pieces.
The FAQs and squires, I think, is going to be, from what their preview is, that's what the change is.
Yes, you're all excited about horses.
Apparently I've become a crazy horse guy.
Yeah, that used to be my title.
We'll see. But yeah, so that'll be cool. And then, obviously there's all the other retinues that are coming with that. The mercenaries and I can't remember what they're all called.
Outlaws, Welsh, Scots.
Yeah, it's going to really expand the game.
I think we can leave talking about that till we have the book on our hand, though.
Yes, we will. So, it's pretty exciting. I don't think there's been too much else on the hobby front that I've seen news-wise. The usual...
You mentioned something to me about decals.
Yeah, I've been painting up my Baron's War guys, I've been using some decals from the Mighty Brush, which the first one I used, I thought I've made a mistake here. I hate these, but I've converted myself. They're actually quite good. They're this soft, so they're a bit more malleable than some others I've used before, which is the issue I had on the first one. It folded on me, and then I couldn't quite get it to unfold back, and so there's a claw miss. There's a lion rampant missing a claw. So sorry about that. If you're just catching up and you're hearing me talk twice, we've had some technical difficulties. I was saying,
so they're a bit softer. You were saying the decals were a bit softer.
Yeah, had to unfold, screwed one up, as in it folded too much, and I ripped it off and got frustrated. But no, I've just put them on some pretty crazy wavy flags, sculpted flags, and once you sort of work out the trick, they go on really nicely and they mold really well to the surface. So yeah, actually quite happy with them. Not quite as opaque as I'd like, but we can fix that with a bit of paint over the top and whatever. So yeah, no, very nice. Would probably recommend.
Yeah, that sounds like it's... Look, I'm an idiot. I'll prefer to freehand all my symbols, but it's good to know that there's a good source for them out there. And
there's a few different places I've seen for like medieval heraldry, but this was one that we grabbed some from and tried, and quite like it. It's good. I think it's time that we push on to the main topic for the evening, afternoon, day, whenever you're listening. We are going to have a chat about the Baron's War units and some of the abilities and stuff, and just a few things that Jackson and I have seen that have intrigued our thoughts, and just some sort of like the synergy of them.
Synergies and musings, I guess, would probably be the best way to talk about it.
Thus far, locally, I think we've had you, Jax, and me. Seraphis, I've played a few games against.
Dave, one of my mates.
Andy, we can't forget Andy. In fact, I was supposed to shout out Andy at the start of this episode.
You shouldn't have shouted out Andy. Now, for the listeners, our good friend Andy is a religious listener, but whinges that we didn't shout him out or mention him, despite the fact that we've mentioned a stack of our other mates in our past episodes.
Yeah, so this one's for you, Andy.
I was going to string him along and not mention him.
He got salty with me the other day. He threatened to not print me any more stuffs.
Yeah, no. Well, you've got enough stuff to paint. I mean, really, you should have actually just toughened up and just took it on the chin, my friend.
Yes, so...
We can't be blackmailed by these terrain makers.
Andy's played a couple of games with us. So yeah, so far though, we've all been playing 500 points, and somewhere approximately the starter retinues from the 2-player starter set. So in that starter set's not a whole lot of additional abilities. You've got the unit abilities, though, especially the first few games, we forgot a lot. And just things like swords giving you +1 to your attack and stuff like that. We were missing that a bit. But as we've played a few more games, we've really cottoned on to some of those abilities. So yeah, we've sort of all started looking a little bit at the dabblings of what you can do. Now, we've had a couple of technical difficulties since the start of the podcast, and we're actually recording this bit a few days later, and Salute will be finishing at some point in the next few hours. So there's been a fair bit of hot gossip about the King John book, which is now available. We've ordered ours, so hopefully they'll ship once Wargames Atlantic recover from what is probably a bit of a whiplash of orders hitting their web store.
And if in the meantime, I mean, it'd be a little while before we get our chance to lay our grubby paws on it and review it, I'd probably shout out Seventh Son on YouTube. Martin over at Seventh Son has done the start of a walkthrough. It's not, I don't think, a full review. I haven't had a chance to sit down and look at it. But he has done a bit of a walkthrough, and then also Wargames Atlantic have been putting a stack of stuff up. So it's worth sitting down and watching those if you want to see what's in the King John supplement. The other thing, as I think we've mentioned earlier in this podcast, although it's been a few days, but the list that we're going through has an updated version in the King John supplement that includes, I think, Squires and all of the FAQs to correct a couple of errors.
Yeah, missing weapons.
Yeah, some print errors.
Yeah.
They'll be incorporated into the King John supplement, so it's all in one place. So keep in mind that what we're talking about is perhaps not the most updated version of the list, but it is broadly pretty well identical.
Yeah, it should be pretty accurate. There might be a couple little things that you just got to pick the nuances of.
We're not going to go through tonight line by line.
No, not at all.
To be really clear, we are not talking about this in an optimization sense. We are talking about it in a synergy sense of what's fun to use, what kinds of things would be cool to combine, things that'd be cool to test. But we are not doing the Meta Hammer Power Gamer kind of focus of a line by line review of how to build the most brutal retinue that ever sacked King John's holdings.
Yeah. This is Jackson's chance. This game's Jackson's current chance to not do metagaming as he's getting ready for his WTC bolt action.
I do like to run a bit of narrative, my friend. I'm not getting enough of it, but I'm not totally a filthy power gamer.
Except for right now while you're prepping. Anyway,
let's move on. I'm very much a filthy power gamer. Yeah. And this week was 3 prep games and countless hours either painting or talking to people about said prep games or top seeing them.
Right. Well, I think probably the first thing that we should talk about just briefly is actually purchasing the abilities. Jackson and I have been talking about this a little bit off podcast, and there's a couple of little nuances around abilities. One of our early observations were that abilities are going to be super overpowered, especially if you can start stacking them and that.
And some of them are very cheap for what they do.
Yeah, but also just being able to combo them. But we went back and actually read the rules about purchasing abilities, and it's probably worth noting that you can only take the number of abilities on a unit as their level. So most infantry and most units are only going to get 1. Lords will get 2 or their equivalent, and barons or their equivalent will get 3, or can take 3, I should say.
And then across your list, you're only allowed 3 abilities plus the number of commanders.
Yeah, so if you're running
probably realistically, when I've started tinkering with list building, probably no more than 6, assuming you're doing your absolute best to try and power game it.
Yeah, obviously depends how many points you're spending on commanders and stuff. But yeah, probably looking at 1,000 points, we're thinking, because we've played so many 1,000-point games and are experts.
Yeah, totally.
Which is none. I reckon you're looking at probably that 5-6 mark. 500-point game, you're looking at 4. Maybe 5 if you really pushed it, but I think 4.
You run out of points at 500 points, to be honest. I think you're probably looking at, your 1 for your commander and 3.
Yeah, that's sort of what I think too.
Yeah, so that's when we actually start talking about units. I mean, a retinue list obviously needs to be made up of a commander. Obviously, he needs to have a command group, a unit he's assigned to. There are some basic rules around obviously building your forces in that, you can't spend more than half of your points on your commander and his retinue. They recommend, that's in the FAQ, but realistically, I would say for game balance and fun purposes, this should be applied to everything. They recommend no more than 1/3 of your points are spent on archers. or ranged weapons.
Yeah, ranged
so
weapons.
you kind of keep it to that 33% max for your bowman. And then also there's your 10% of green troops, unless you're playing mercenaries in the new King John supplement.
Yeah,
10%
but
of
given
green.
that we don't have that in our hot little hands, we probably won't talk about that too much.
Yeah. That's kind of how your lists work. Obviously, you can have a selection of units, you can have extra lords, but that's really how your retinues boil down. Now, each of the units has basically a single set of profiles. So you have a Baron profile that is then broken down into sort of a scaled set of stats for green, irregular, veteran. Same for your lords and tier 2 characters, and then same for your warriors. So everyone's space stats are the same. It's all the kit and abilities that you add up onto it that is separate. And that gives you the flavor. Your profile is pretty much one consistent one, depending on your veterancy. Now, as we said, the flavor for your various units, you have your different unit types, and really the differentiator on most of those unit types is what equipment they can take. So, for example, can they take shields? If they can take shields, what kinds of shields can they take? If they can take armor, what kinds of armor can they take? If they can take weapons, what types of weapons they can take? Then also the inherent abilities. Now, these abilities don't count towards your actual quantity of abilities that you can take that we were just speaking about before. Those are your general abilities that you can upgrade onto different units. But your inherent abilities come with your specific unit type. So a knight is always going to have chivalry, and they're always going to have live by the sword. Militant monks are always going to have faith. Levy are always going to have sorry, my lord. Bowmen taken above regular are always going to have every bloody Sunday.
Yep.
So that's the differentiator, is your equipment, your inherent abilities, and then obviously you can stack standard abilities onto those units as well. So it allows you to get quite a bit of flavor. It allows you to double down on particular strengths and weaknesses on units. It allows you to mitigate some of the weaknesses on units, depending upon how you stack your abilities and what kit you're giving these different units. I will say from an optimization sense, there are a couple of units. For example, Levy and Militant Monks are quite similar. The difference is that one has faith and one has sorry, my lord. Realistically, when you start looking at that, you go, well, maybe I take Militant Monks because faith looks like a more general purpose ability than sorry, my lord. But that is not what we're talking about tonight. We're just talking about how to build a themey unit. And you know what? I want me some Levy. I want me some peasants to as we spoke about last episode, pull some knights off their horses and murder them brutally.
Yeah. The levy look pretty good.
The thing with the levy, right, is that if you want your green troops to have a ranged weapon, militant monks can't do that. So levy with slings are awesome.
Yeah, and also obviously you can go unarmored bowman, which is they're not counted as levy in this, but a green unarmored bowman is basically a levy with a bow.
Also, good luck hitting anything with a green unarmored bowman.
That's a good point.
Having played a game against a unit of green unarmored bowmen, actually 2 units of green unarmored bowmen, they really didn't do very much.
Yeah, cool. I haven't tried them yet, so.
Yeah, look, they're great for being able to sit right at the back of the table on objectives and just plink shots at things.
Yeah, one of the things I noticed in my last game against Seraphis was when you start looking at the modifiers to hit, it gets pretty brutal when you're looking at 8s and 9s to hit.
Yeah, then you need very big units, which to be fair, when you're running something like green troops, you kind of want big units anyway.
Yeah, or multiples sitting next to each other. Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's kind of how your units work. And obviously different weapons have different profiles. This is a game where the individual type of weapon in your figure's hands is going to matter. I know
to a degree, the WYSIWYG rule says that only 50% of the unit have to have it. So,
absolutely.
Yeah, that does make it a bit nicer from a modeling perspective because one, you can have a bit of variation, and two, you don't need to have 12 sling dudes and 12. You can mix and match a little bit. So
absolutely, and it gives you a little bit of flexibility in how you actually use your figures. But kind of what I was getting at more is that a lot of these kind of games that are this scale don't have huge distinctions between the individual weapons. They might just say hand weapon, and that covers everything from a mace to a sword to a falchion to a axe. In this case, mace, a sword, a falchion, an axe, a hand weapon all have very distinct roles.
Yeah, and they all have distinct point costs.
Absolutely. So that kind of is how obviously your individual units are going to stack up. When we actually look at the units, what units are in this base list? So you have your barons and your lords, which are obviously your knightly characters, your commanders. Your barons, your 3-tier, 3 activation, 3 upgrade hero. Your lord is cheaper, sort of about 10 points cheaper, and it's instead is a 2-point upgrade, or a 2 action unit, a tier 2 unit, which is a 2 activations is pretty solid. Then you have
remember, everyone can take 2 activations, but you've got to have command activations to do that.
Yeah, you've got to have the spare activations to pass off.
Yeah, so your Baron ends up with 2 spare, in inverted commas, that he can use one on himself and dole one out to someone else.
Yeah, and that's kind of where the value in the Baron is.
Yeah.
The Lord is just that little bit cheaper. The thing that separates the Baron and the Lord from the other option is that they must be the Baron must be in a command group made up of knights, so you're locked into taking a more expensive sort of supporting command group, whereas a lord can be knights or sergeants, which gives you a level of flexibility because you don't need to take as expensive a kind of block of supporting troops. And the difference between knights and sergeants is only a couple of points, but that adds up if you're taking
that adds up if you want numbers. Yeah,
your command group suddenly might be a 30 or 40 point difference depending upon what kit you're giving them.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Then you have your sergeant at arms. Now, it's worth pointing out your baron has a mounted baron option. Your sergeant has a mounted sergeant at arms option. Your lord has a mounted lord option. The real difference there is just the option to add a horse or barded horse and a lance or a cavalry spear. But yeah, your sergeant at arms is your kind of cheap, bare bones second leader option. He's fractionally cheaper than a lord. He has some slightly different special rules. And he can go into sergeants or spearmen or mounted sergeant as his command group.
You can give him padded armor as opposed to mail, so you can cheap him out a little bit more if you want.
Yeah, absolutely. And like the thing is, right, so like a unit of spearmen are about the same cost as a unit of sergeants, but you can get a lot cheaper on the upgrades on a unit of spearmen.
Yeah.
You kind of start wanting to sink points into a large unit of sergeants to make them durable, to give them good weapons. Whereas spearmen, you go, cool, I'm going to have a spear and I may take a shield and I may give them padded armor. So yeah, if you want a really budget commander, you have your sergeant at arms. Now, with your warriors, you have knights and mounted knights. You have sergeants and mounted sergeants and marksman sergeants. So obviously they're your kind of professional soldiers. Obviously your knights are knights. They are your super hard hitting. They have some really nasty special rules. They can cause a lot of damage. Whereas your sergeants are just kind of your basic professional soldiers. They've got a good selection of kit. They don't have as many special rules native. Now, the thing with the sergeants is that they come with martial respect. Normal sergeants can't take ranged weapons. Marksman sergeants can take crossbows, and mounted sergeants obviously can take cavalry spears and horses or different barded horses and the like. Then, as far as your commoners go, you've got crossbowmen. You've got bowmen, you've got spearmen, you've got militant monks, and you've got levy.
And they all do what they say on the box.
Pretty much. They're all they've got some slightly different options there, but they are all pretty well par for the course.
Yeah, and they can all take various levels of armor.
Yeah.
All the different weapon options are...
Yeah, a spearman unit can only take a spear or a bill. A bowman unit can take a bow, a crossbowman unit can take a crossbow, or must take a crossbow.
Hence do what they say on the box.
Yeah.
Levy is probably the one with the best, the most amount of options, given that they can take hand weapons, spears, slings, or improvised two-handed weapons.
Absolutely. Your militant monks have also got a lot of versatility there, and that they can kind of almost be budget sergeants without some of the inherent abilities that sergeants have got.
Yeah.
You can take a hand weapon, you can take a sword if they're regular, you can take a two-handed weapon, you can take a spear. You just lose access to some of the other weapons options like falchions, maces, bills, Your sergeants are a little bit more flexible.
You get a 3-point base discount, so...
Yeah. No, they're identical costed, man. Regular sergeants and regular militant monks are 15 points.
Yeah, I misread the green. Yeah.
The difference there is that, for example, you have the faith special rule on militant monks where you have the martial respect rule on sergeants.
Yeah.
So yeah, you're basically, a lot of these units are similarly costed. It comes down to what else you want to stack on them as to which one you're going to gravitate to and which inherent abilities you want as to what kind of theme you want to your unit.
Yeah. So I know that with what I've been playing, I've been playing knights with swords and shields, and they're pretty good. Like, I think they're pretty much going to be your standard knight.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's the thing, right? So like the upgrades you give them. So like, for example, we go knights have chivalry. Chivalry just means that you don't have to take an order check to charge a further away unit as long as they also have chivalry. You know, your knight seeking out holy combat against other knights of equal status. Knights also come with live by the sword, which, if my memory serves me correctly, live by the sword basically just gives you one reroll melee attack dice against groups that are not knights. So it's almost like a free banner for just attacks on knights. It's a pretty cool special rule. Whereas, for example, your sergeants, they have martial respect. Martial respect means that, you know, when a friendly group takes a morale check, or not an order check, when a morale check, within 6 of a group with this ability, they roll 2d10 and pick the highest result. So, for example, you can use a unit of sergeants to anchor your really poor quality levy and make it much more likely that they'll stand and fight.
It's one of those cool synergy rules.
You're incentivized to like sprinkle some sergeants in amongst some of your other troops, whereas knights are kind of there to hunt down other units. Yeah. And then, as you said, like your basic upgrades, I mean, as I think we alluded to last episode, I mean, the difference between armor is basically a pattern armor is a neg-1 to your movement and a +1 to your defense. Mail is a neg-2 and a +2 for the same stats, but it also means that you instead of losing a quarter of your move when you move through cover, you lose half. So they become much worse at moving through cover. And
they become terrible. Having done it in my last game, terrible at moving through cover.
Yeah, they're not great. They're really not flash.
You're down to 2-inch movement, which is atrocious.
Absolutely. So you kind of want and that's something I think I'm finding with Baron's War tables is you kind of want lots of bits of scatter to incentivize people to use different types of armor and buy different kinds of units.
Yeah.
Because you want, can we go the short way over this one little patch of bushes, or do we have to go the long way because we're knights and we're wearing heavy armor and this is going to suck if we try to get through?
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's your difference with armor. Shields work as basically a shield save, which is just an extra save at the after your normal armor.
It's almost like a feel no pain sort of role if you come from the 40k background.
Absolutely. And really, a small shield, a medium shield, and a large shield, they're just progressively better shield saves.
Yeah.
Small shield is a 9-up, medium shield's an 8-up, a large shield's a 7-up.
And then you've got some cool synergy if you're running a sword because you get parry, so that gives you a +1 in melee.
And so you can kind of cheap out. You might go, oh, look, I've got a unit of militant monks. I'm going to take a small shield and a sword because it's cheap, and I'm still getting an 8-up shield roll.
Yeah,
as you might
that's
go,
right.
My armored knights, I want them to be unkillable. I'm going to max out on cost and I'm going to take a large shield and a sword, and that's going to give me a 6-up shield roll.
Mm-hmm.
And good luck killing that without stacking other special rules.
Yeah, without trying to ping them at long range.
Yeah. Now, as far as your weapons, there's lots of different options. So you have hand weapons, battle axes, improvised two-handed weapons, spears, falchions, swords, maces, bills or polearms, horsemen's picks, two-handed weapons, cavalry spears, lances for your hand-to-hand weapons. And then you have slings, javelins, bows, and crossbows for your ranged weapons. And we said mail and padded armor, small, medium, and large shields, horses and barded horses, and then the ability to have banner upgrades, pennant upgrades, musician upgrades, and priest upgrades on your command group. Now, as far as the various weapons go, again, not going to go through them one by one. Basically, they kind of fall into a selection of different things. So some of the weapons will improve your attack stat. Some of the weapons will modify your opponent's defense rolls. Some of the weapons, as you said, with, for example, swords, will boost a shield roll, whereas like a battle axe will drop a shield roll by -1. So they modify the shield roll. And Lancers, for example, are one-use weapons. There's slow weapons, pretty much just two-handed axes where even when you charge, you strike last. But yeah, they all basically work on those kind of modifiers. They either improve your attack roll, they they make your opponent's defense worse, or they make their shield rolls worse or better.
And basically, apart from a hand weapon, everything has a special ability.
Which is why we haven't experimented too much when we've been playing games, because it is a bit to keep track of.
Yeah. I found that early on it was quite hard to keep on top of all the pluses and minuses. The builder, like the online retinue builder, does a good job as it adds in all your defense stuff onto your profile, and then you just have to remember your weapon.
Yeah, the army builder makes life so much simpler.
Yeah. Is there any weapons in there that really stand out to you, Jackson? I mean, I've been looking at pole arms, bill or pole arms, because I think they're cool.
What do they do, Jono?
So they give you hacking, so you take a -1 to your defense roll, and I think that's a pretty big modifier, because defense rolls are obviously quite important to keep you guys alive. And then you got reach, so you can be within 2 inches of someone in combat. So if you get charged and you're a bit more spread out, you've got a bit more range, obviously, because the length of the weapon.
Or if you have a bigger unit.
Yeah, or a bigger unit.
Base to base.
Yeah, that's right. And depending on how you get charged, like if you get charged from the flank, there's no like modifier for that, but they may not get, like say you get charged from a group of 4 or 6 knights or something from the flank, they might get 2 or 3 guys in base to base with you, which means they can probably get all of their guys having an attack. But if you've only got 2 or 3 guys in base to base, you might struggle to get more than, 4 or 5 back. But if you got a group of 6 or 8 bills sitting there, pole arms, all of a sudden you can potentially get them all.
Absolutely. And they also give you +1 to your attack roll, which is quite handy. So yeah, definitely worth considering.
Oh, of course. Sorry. Yeah, I was looking at the +1 to attack roll is pretty standard across most of the weapons.
Yeah. The only thing with them is like with that you can't take a shield with them.
Yeah, that's right. You sacrifice for having a good offensive weapon, or it's actually a pretty good defensive weapon as well, is that you can't take the defensive shield.
And it's worth pointing out that that's not actually a linear decrease in defense. It's actually a massive drop in defense because you're only rolling 2 sets of dice instead of 3 sets of dice.
Yes, that's right. Yeah.
Yeah.
So losing a shield save, or gaining a shield save, I should say, is actually quite significant. Even if it's only a 9+ shield save, with maths, you're giving yourself the 10% or higher, up to 30% chance of saving on a shield, not including any weapon modifier you might have. So it's a big deal. Yeah. That second defensive dice roll is pretty big.
Yeah, so my one that I keep coming back to, I actually have 2. One I think is really good just on a lot of different units, and then one I think obviously is a bit more limited. Now, my favorite and the one I'm really looking forward to getting some games in with at the moment with my next list is the mace. So you can take a mace on, I think it's mostly knights, sergeants, and obviously the corresponding heroes. You kind of can't take a mace on most of your lighter infantry. But what a mace does is it's like a sword, like bill or polearm. It's just a flat +1 to your attack roll. However, its special rule is that you do not get shield saves against it. No shield saves.
Which again is also pretty big.
Yeah, that ties straight into what you were saying there with the not being able to take shields. Like that is awesome.
Yeah. And it's a bit cheaper than a polearm, so you're only looking at 2 points a warrior.
Yeah.
So it's on par with a sword or a falchion.
Yep, absolutely.
Yeah.
The other one that jumps out to me, and because, we are talking about, Baron's War, the era of the knight, and I may or may not have a horse in the paddock, is lancers.
Yeah. No, lancers have been there for you.
Off the chain.
Yeah.
So lancers are just a flat +2 to your attack roll. A lance does not replace your equipped weapon, so you take a lance with another weapon, but it's single use, and it's only ever used the first time the group charges, the unit charges. It has piercing, so when charging, the target does not apply armor modifiers to its defense roll. So what that
means... Which means you're just flat on your armor modifier.
No, you're literally just using the base defense roll on the profile.
Right. You're not leaving your armor.
7 up on your base infantry. For the
most
most
of course.
Part. You just totally ignore armor. And then also they have shock. So if a unit with lancers causes any casualties when it charges from the lance attacks, the target group must pass a morale check during that combat resolution or it breaks.
Yeah. And those lancers, they synergize so well with
the other cavalry special rules.
Yeah, so the special rule for the retinue is they got two. One of them is cavalry warfare. The other one's infantry screen. Infantry screen is basically you can charge through a infantry group. They got to pass a morale test, but that's pretty cool that you can screen them with something. So you can screen
run
a big
a
expensive
wall of
unit.
levy up, making sure that your knights can't get shot, and then you can just absolutely, kick the horse in the guts and absolutely flatten it at your opponent.
If they fail their morale test, it hurts, but that's okay.
Yeah, but that's part of wargaming.
Yeah, but the other one, which is the one that synergizes the best, is cavalry warfare first charge. So the first time in each game that a group of mounted knights declares a charge, which is also the only time you're going to use your lance. It automatically gains close ranks, provided it's not weary, and charges at least 6 inches. And close ranks
is nuts. When it can only be taken on a group of mounted knights. Now, obviously, you can also buy this as a standard ability, so you can use it more than just once. But when the knights declare a charge against an infantry group, provided they are not weary and are at least 6 inches from their target, they may close ranks. Immediately before the defender declares their reaction, the targeted infantry must take a morale check. If failed, the group becomes broken and may not make a reaction. The big one there is the not being able to take a reaction. You can't defend against it.
What's even bigger is you're broken.
Yeah, it will make its broken move away from the charging knights in the combat. And unlike, for example, with the lance, where the unit is broken, after they take casualties, you're broken before you take casualties.
Yeah.
Which means that your opponent doesn't actually need to roll to hit you.
Yeah, which is huge, as we've found out in a couple of games.
Yeah, you charge a broken unit and you will do horrendous damage to it. Especially when you then start looking at the kinds of weapons you can take, which just totally, ignore or massively mitigate armor saves, and shield saves.
Yeah.
No, it's definitely it's a really cool weapon that goes on a really cool unit that obviously, being Baron's War and being Europe, it defines the era.
Yeah.
But also, a unit of mounted knights, I think when I started working out points cost for some of this stuff was up to 40 points ahead.
It's pretty expensive, especially you stick them on a bartered horse. Yeah, you give them a lance at 4 points. You give them even just a medium shield at 3 and a sword at 2.
I think if you're spending that many points, you just spend the extra and take the large shield. You have to take the money more. You may choose a lance. You take a lance for sure.
Yeah.
But yeah, you're looking up towards that 35, 40 points before you add upgrades. And you really got to hope you don't run anywhere near a crossbowman.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because crossbowman will ruin your day.
Speaking about crossbow is the other unit that I'm looking at building some of. So they have the same range as a bow, but they take the same modifiers, so you get a +1 to your attack roll there's no modifier at long range, and you take a +1 to your attack roll at short range. So it's better than a bow. But also any hits on a natural 0 can only be defended by defense dice on a natural 0.
Yeah, so it's a 10, not a 0, Jono.
Oh, yeah. Well, the book says 0, but yes, it's a 10.
Then. Yeah.
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 So basically, when you hit good, they die.
Yeah, the penalty you get for that is that while you still have the move and shoot rule that bows have, in that you can move 3 inches and shoot at short range, you have reload, which means unless you go and pay for another ability, you can only ever shoot once per turn. You may not use the shoot back reaction when someone shoots you, which means you're super susceptible to just being picked on by archers. And you may not use reaction shooting. So if a unit tries to charge you, you can't choose to stand and shoot at them. So it's a much more clunky weapon that you have to use. You have to set it up a little bit more.
Well, they
horrendously nasty.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Absolutely. Totally agreed there. I am keen to try javelins.
Yeah, I haven't really looked at them.
Look, they don't look like they've got a 6-inch long range, so they're never in short. But you can move 6 and fire and throw them.
Yeah, cool. Yeah.
If you're ending closer to the target than the original position, you gain an extra D6 range. So if you're running levy towards the unit, you can gain a little bit of extra range on it, so they're not just flat 6 inches. I don't know that they're good, but they're an interesting.
They're interesting.
They don't have any attack modifier, but they are something that'd be a cool way to use a unit of levy.
Yeah, I reckon slings would be better than javelins for something that you got to get in close. Just if you got to get fairly close to shoot anyway, you got a bit more range. You can still do your move and shoot at 6 inches.
You get your success. So any successful hits generate bonus attacks. So every time you
only if you haven't moved. But either way, so if you move, you've got 6 inches of movement and still have 10 inches of range. So you've effectively got 16 inches of range.
Imagine 2 units of 8 levy running around with slings.
Yeah, it'd be pretty sick.
That would actually cause a fair bit of chaos. Yeah, but
it's
no,
food
that's
for
kind
thought.
of some of the upgrades and some of the weapons you can add onto units.
Yeah.
What about abilities, Jono? What abilities have caught your eye from the abilities that you can upgrade units, not the inherent abilities that often come on different profiles?
Yeah, I'm just trying to remind myself of some of the names. Obviously, we've talked about close ranks, and that just looks like an insanely good one for any mounted knight. You know, if you want to pour the points in, then pour the points in proper. The other one, experienced tactician, looks pretty useful as well. You get to roll an extra D10 for your initiative and pick the highest.
And it's very cheap for 2 points, but obviously it does use your abilities slot.
Yeah, but I think that, because that's something you can do if you spend command actions, but I'm pretty sure you've got to spend 2 command actions to do it.
Yeah, I think no. Without me flicking back through the rules, I think you get an extra dice for every command action you choose to spend.
Right. Either way, that's a pretty big spend for an extra dice. I suppose
Depends
if you really need
that first activation is.
Yeah, if you really need that first activation, then it's probably worth it. But you could also just pay 2 points for it and have it. So
that comes at the cost of not having that ability to put on something else.
yeah, that's right.
And that's commander only. You can only ever put that on the commander. There's a restriction there.
Which is fine, because it's also only a 2-point upgrade. So if you're sort of not wanting to spend too many points on them, robust was the other one. I think we talked about this the other day outside the podcast.
And this ties into Warhost and how monsters work in Warhost. Basically, you need an extra successful hit to remove this commander as a casualty. So it's not an extra wound, but what it is that when you shoot at the commander or when you attack the commander in combat, you actually need to do 2 wounds specifically to him. 2 damage dice specifically to him, allocated to him, for him to then die.
Which in this is pretty big, because it makes him a lot less susceptible to one person getting in base to base and sniping him out of the unit. And second, it means that if he's got a retinue of, a decent number of people, you've got to do a lot of damage and they've got to fail a lot of saves to get through and actually take him out.
Yeah, absolutely. Provided he's not, got 1 or 2 guys that he's wandering around with and your opponent can potentially overkill.
Yeah.
No, definitely. Yeah. And those are probably some of the ones I look at and go, they're probably a little bit more auto-include, but obviously they chew into your access to other abilities on other units. So you take those for 4 points and suddenly 2 of your potentially, maybe 6 abilities you're going to get in a 1,000-point list are gone. You've used.
I don't think you necessarily stack them, but maybe.
I'd probably stack them, to be honest.
Yeah.
I mean, they're specifically commander only.
Yeah, that's true. But if you've got a couple of commanders, it might be worth giving your big commander experienced tactician, and you can kind of hide him away at the back a little bit more. And then, give a more sort of up in your face commander robust.
Yep, that's fair.
Another one that I looked at, which I thought was pretty good, was Master Fletcher. So that increases the long range of your bows or crossbows by 5 inches. So that puts you out to a 25-inch range.
Which is quite a lot when you consider that we're playing on a, 3x4 table.
3x4, yeah.
It gives you a lot of control over that space. I mean, you're looking at a 2-foot radius instead of a 2-inch radius.
Yeah, it's pretty good.
The one that jumps out to me, right, is nimble, and this is the bolt action player in me coming out. Nimble it can only be taken by groups that are not equipped with armor. So you're generally looking at archers, levy, militant monks, maybe spearmen. But what it does is that the group treats difficult ground as passable and very difficult terrain as difficult. And then in addition, they may swim in deep rivers and lakes, which is something that most units can't do. So it just gives you a huge amount of flexibility getting around the table, because, these are also units that don't have armor. So they're generally going to be moving up towards that 6-inch move. And then suddenly terrain is even less of an inhibition.
Yeah, exactly. It does make them particularly agile around the table, especially if it's a ranged units. Yeah. For ranged units, sorry.
Absolutely. I mean, there's no way to put it on a mounted unit because all of the mounted units must have armor.
Yeah.
Which is probably
at least
because
for now. We'll see what happens in King John, but
absolutely, or even Outtremor. I mean, I do distinctly recall from reading that some of the Saracen horse archers didn't have a lot of armor. Although that's me dredging up distant school education memories. Yeah. So no, that's definitely something that's worth looking at. I quite like that as an option. The other one that I quite like is and this one pops up all the time if you're keeping an eye on people chatting about lists, is Gutter Thug. So every successfully defended attack that your opponent makes in melee generates a bonus attack for you. So basically on large units, the more your opponent's defending, the more bites at the cherry you get.
Yeah. And I don't even know what you'd put that on. Like, I think you're right. You want a large group.
I'm thinking a big, medium-sized unit with pole arms or something.
Yeah, that's what I was sort of thinking.
Something with reach. The other thing that would work really well is middling quality infantry that don't necessarily do a lot of damage with their individual hits. So stuff that you're kind of looking at kind of regular infantry of some kind, maybe monks equipped with swords or sergeants equipped with swords. They're going to get hits in, but they're probably equipped with something that's not necessarily going to mitigate defense rolls or other things.
Yeah, I think sergeants or
two-handed weapons.
Yeah, that would be
The thing with a two-handed weapon is that a two-handed weapon like a lance is a +2 to your attack roll, which means that you've got a little bit extra reliability on actually getting the hit. And then every time your opponent defends, you just get an extra attack into them.
Yeah. I was going to say, whatever you do, you need to be putting it on something that is going to reliably get the hits.
Yeah.
Not necessarily get the hits through, but you need to reliably get the hits. So yeah, anything with a weapon that gives you, +2 to your attack, +1 to your attack as well, if they're maybe regular or vet. I reckon it'd be interesting on a group of knights, to be honest.
Yeah, absolutely. You'd have your Gutter Thug knights that you've dragged out of the local tavern.
Yeah, I don't think it fits thematically for the rule, but I think that, well, it might do if you play someone like Folks to Brutes, or however you say it. I've butchered that pronunciation.
I think it's pronounced Folks to Burr.
It could be, but from what I've seen, he got the name because he was a bit of a brute.
Yeah, okay.
So, thematically, someone like him, it might work.
And it is worth pointing out, right, that the knight in shining armor that is holier than thou and a cut above the rest is very much a modern stereotype.
Yeah.
We are looking at an era of basically petty warlords.
Yeah, exactly.
Who have their authority granted to them by other petty warlords who have their authority granted by other petty warlords.
What a time to be alive.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. No, the chivalry is a thing, but it's also kind of put up on a pedestal.
Yeah, and we're also talking fairly early in the chivalry code and all that in terms of it being developed. So
yeah. So no, the other one that I quite like that I've been looking at, because I've got kind of this love-hate relationship with dudes with big axes. So units of sergeants with two-handed weapons is open up. So basically, again, what that does is that your opponent does not receive any bonuses for a defend action or a defend reaction in melee combat. If you charge into a unit, opponent looks at it and goes, I probably actually can't do any damage with it. I'm going to, instead of striking back, I'm going to defend. That is awesome for just going, yep, not going to happen.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like if you see someone
what it just does is it probably baits back out people to just fight back with their reaction rather than to defend with their reaction. But that can be quite valuable.
It does mean that if someone's taken a defend action as opposed to reaction, you negate that. So someone sort of brings a group forward and gives them a defend action ready for your charge. Yeah.
That would also be good on knights, like mounted knights.
Yeah, true.
Wait a minute, I think lancers ignore defense modifiers. It would literally
but you're not necessarily going to have lancers on all your knights, depending on how many knights you run. But yeah, I think that's a pretty good one. I actually think that might be good for hunting down levy.
Yeah, this is true.
Because as levy, if you get assaulted with levy by good troops, i.e. sergeants with swords or knights,
basically anything that's not levy.
Sorry?
Basically anything that's not levy.
Yeah, pretty much. You want to defend because that +2 to your defense roll is huge when you've got, I think there are 7 or an 8+ defense.
And no armor save, and no shield, and no armor.
Yeah, no shield and no access to, a little bit of access to shield, but not really. So.
Yeah. No, absolutely. There's definitely some really interesting options there.
Yeah, and I mean, we went through the list of units in a decent amount of depth there. But we kind of just briefly touched on weapons and abilities. There's a lot in there. And I imagine the weapons will be pretty consistent across the different ones in the coming.
Well, an axe is an axe is an axe.
Yeah, that's right.
There may be something where we see, and look, it depends how they branch out with their various, retinues, but you may see something where the signature weapon of each faction maybe gets something a little bit special. I mean, lances are an amazing weapon, but that's because they're pretty much the iconic weapon of the Knight of the era, the Mounted Knight.
And
Whereas,
they're a
for
Mounted Knight
example,
thing.
yeah, absolutely. Whereas maybe, I don't know what is in, for example, the Irish or Scottish warbands, but you hear if I'm remembering, there's lots of stuff about some of the two-handed big swords that they used. And when you get to the Middle East, I mean, again, there's differences there for the types of weapons they used that were distinctly something used in that area. So there might be some stuff there, but I think realistically, most of it's going to be very similar.
I think that I've seen up to the recording of this, War Games Atlantic have put out 2 retinue previews. One of them was the feudal Western European update list, and the other one was for, I think, the other French group, which I can't remember the name of. And they had, I think they had I can't remember if it was the Flems. Anyway, I think they had a weapon. I'm going off memory here, but I think they might have had a weapon that was a bit different. They definitely had some cool unit stuff.
Question for you then, just probably now we've had a bit of a brief summary on how different units work, different kinds of upgrades and cool things you can do. Can you give me 2 units, like as a constructed unit profile of I would take this unit with potentially this upgrade and this weapon or shield or armor option?
Well, I am going to be building in the not too distant future a unit of pole arms.
Yep. How many men and what kind of veterancy? And
look, I'm thinking I'm going to start with 6. I'm probably going to build them out of the sergeant's kit. I have received a couple of boxes of different models from War Games Atlantic, so I've been doing a bit of planning, this has actually been super good for. So yeah, I think I'm going to do a group of 6 with pole arms, probably run them regular, I'll probably dabble between mail and padded. I'll make them so that they're about 50-50, so I can just pick one. And I think you've convinced me tonight that Gutter Thug might be a good one to take.
Yeah, as a good special. Yep.
Yeah, I mean, obviously the abilities you don't model, so you can dabble. But then also I think Open Up could be a good one for them as well. It's an expensive weapon.
At that point, you're kind of looking at sort of 20 to 22 kind of points a figure. So you're looking at a unit of probably, 120 to 130 odd points?
Yeah, somewhere about there. Yeah,
nice. Okay.
So that's a thought, although I might build 8. You never know.
I think given that reach is such a big thing, it might be worth
doing 8.
A bigger unit.
Yeah. Well,
but also build 6 and then grab 2 miniatures with spears or with swords or something and toss them into that unit.
That's true.
This is me being a bit of a anti-WYSIWYG kind of person, but if you have at least half a unit with the pole arms.
Yeah, it's conforming to the WYSIWYG rules, so it's fine. Yeah, and the other one is I'm going to build some crossbowmen, and I think I'm going to do pretty similar in that I'll build them out of the marksman sprues. So they're wearing padded or mail.
Yep, and you're going probably regular with those?
Yeah, I think so. I think crossbowmen, you want to go reg.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
And maybe give them the extra range as an ability.
Yeah, the Master Fletcher.
Fletcher. Yeah. What about you, Jackson?
My question there is, if you're going to do that, why don't you just run them as marksman sergeants who can shoot more than once a turn?
Yeah.
I'm assuming potentially because you don't want to funnel the activations off of a leader onto them.
No, that's a good point. I hadn't really thought about that too much. I was just going to build some crossbowmen out of, but I suppose, if you build them to be marksman sergeants, you can run them as crossbowmen.
Well, the thing is they both have pretty much the same options. It's just the different special rules. The marksman sergeants are more expensive.
Yeah, and they must have armor.
They must have armor rather than they may. Yeah, okay.
Yes, they must have padded or mail, whereas crossbowmen can be unarmored.
Yeah, I think it's worth, given what a target crossbowmen are, actually putting the armor on them.
Yeah.
Because crossbowmen are nasty, whereas bowmen, you kind of like, if they die, they die. You go full Lord Farquaad on them. Some of you are about to die, but that's a sacrifice I'm willing to make.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And I think that's probably the thing I've found a little bit frustrating in the red list from the starter box is that they have mail armored archers, which are also really hard to reposition because they only move 4 inches.
Because they have the mail.
And if you put them in cover to keep them safe, then they only move 2 inches.
Yeah, but the flip side of that is if you have to have an archer war with a similar size unit, you probably walk away with that from that in much better shape.
But I've played Seraphis the most, and he is also built at the red list.
So he's also got armored archers.
Yeah, so we've been throwing exactly the same retinue at each other.
Yeah, okay. At least you're learning the ins and outs of it.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah. What about you? Any particular units that you've looked at?
Look, I've been looking at the spearmen a bit, and I want to experiment there. So I think the biggest size unit I can get is within the unit coherency rules of being within 2 of a single figure is I cannot fit more than 15 figures in a unit, 3 ranks of 5, and also then have them all able to fight by being within 2. So I'm reckoning I would probably go sort of 10 spearmen.
Sounds like you need a movement tray for them.
Probably just about do, to be honest. They come with the brace special rule inherent. So brace allows you, let me find it. Brace is kind of a quite nice rule for fending off cavalry. So basically when you can only take it on units with spears or bills or polearms, when charged by a mounted group, the infantry must make a brace reaction, or may make a brace reaction, sorry. The cavalry group cannot choose to ride down and must charge as normal. The bracing group will attack back with any warriors who are removed as casualties, contributing attack dice. So a big unit with brace in front of a unit of knights will hopefully give them pause for thought.
Yeah, I think that brace is going to be your anti-knight unit.
Yeah, if you're going to go for the cavalry, like if you're going to actually see lots of cavalry on the table and stuff. So my thinking is I'll start with 10 or 12. I take them regular at 15 points a pop. I probably want them to be moderately okay. So I'm going to do the Death Star thing and give them mail. And I probably can't afford to give them the large shield. But if I'm going all in, maybe I do. And I just turn it into this really quite obnoxious block that I put in front of my opponent's knights.
Yeah.
Spears are not great. So a spear doesn't give you any attack bonus rolls.
Yeah, they're a bit.
You get off a spear is reach.
Would you be better off maybe going a smaller shield and giving them a polearm then?
Well, you can't take a shield with a polearm.
Well, that's true. You make a good point.
Yeah. So if I want the more defensive type block, I just take them with
the shields. Yeah.
And shields. The issue then is they kind of hit like a wet mop.
Yeah.
Without your modifier or any of the special rules.
You need your base like attack profile to be good, so you got to take regular.
Probably got to take a regular, to be honest.
Yeah.
But that's something I want to experiment with. And if I was going to give them a
only
unit,
1 point.
Pardon, sorry?
These spears are only 1 point.
Yeah, they're cheap. So like you're looking at a regular man with a spear is 15 points or 16 points with the spear. And then your mail is 2 points. And then your shield is either 3 or 4 if you go a medium or a large.
Yeah.
So they're still reasonably expensive as far as units go, but they'll be really hard to kill. Because also the thing with it is that you're at a unit of 10 or 12, it's actually really hard to kill half of it and put them in a situation where they can break.
Yeah. Yeah. And you're not going to get ridden down by horses.
Yeah.
To break. Yeah.
Absolutely. So that's something I would like to experiment. And I've got the orcs painted up as spearmen to do it with my proxy force at the moment. The other unit I am keen on trying is I've been using Levy as just plain Levy, and just been taking kind of the bare minimum with that, which at 500 points, I think works out at 9.
50 points.
Yeah. I think it's 9 Levy figures.
Yeah.
I want to take them a little bit bigger, and I want to try the Nimble special rule I was talking about before and use them kind of as a little bit more of a scoring and support piece. Because the other thing that Nimble does is it also makes them really good for running down someone. So I think we spoke about this last episode, but right, if you've got a nasty unit of knights or something that breaks a unit, having a unit that you can then chase the target down and get lots of auto hits on is awesome.
Yeah.
So I'm thinking I take Levy with Nimble and I take like a unit of 8 or 2 units of 8, and then I just roll with that. I probably don't have the special abilities to give them anything else. I probably am not incentivized to really give them anything else, to be honest. I just go with Nimble.
You are.
And they become kind of a scoring piece and a kind of utility piece to chase other things down. I could consider giving them spears or slings, but that just starts getting a little bit expensive.
Oh, slings would be cool because you can still run down and auto hit people.
You can move and shoot them too.
Yeah, you can move and shoot 6 inches. And because you're nimble, you can still move 6 inches.
And then like with Nimble and with Sling, they're only 11 points a pop.
Yeah.
So you'd probably get a decent sized unit for under 90 points.
Yeah.
That'd be a cool idea. I might experiment with that.
Might have found another unit to build.
Yeah, I actually quite like that.
Yeah. Well, now that both of us who've said we weren't going to metagame have just metagamed,
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, we kind of broke that rule, didn't we? How
Yeah,
can we
whoops,
optimize this?
that happens. So
Yeah.
I think we've covered the units in probably a bit more depth than maybe we initially intended, but I think it was worth doing. And we've given some musings of our weapon loadouts.
Yeah. Okay, so now, Jono, now that we've got through that, and we've broken the rule of metagaming and building funky units and whatnot.
Given our weapon and ability musings with difficulties right there
absolutely.
at the end.
Question for you. You know, the big question we ask at every end of every episode. Who has been forsaken by the dice this month?
I'm going to give it to myself this time.
What did you do?
As previously mentioned, I played Seraphis. I've played a few games with Baron's War against Seraphis, and played him last Friday. We actually got 2 games in. We got 2 games in about 2.5 hours, because the first game went for about 40 minutes.
Okay.
We got the deployment type where it was across the table, as in like what would normally be the long edges in short edge to short edge in bolt action, but I can't remember if that works out being long edges in this one or not. And you could deploy right up to the center line, and I played aggressive, and my dice didn't play aggressive. And he, I think, turn 2, he broke my knights with my Baron.
Oh dear.
And then he charged them with his levy or his archers or something insignificant
And
like
ran
that.
the Baron down, and that was game.
And ran the Baron down, and that was game over. And it was also the kill point one where if you've killed the enemy Baron, or if your Baron's still alive, either way, you double the points. So it's not the actual units killed, it's points cost of units, and then you double it. So he had some insanely large number of points to my 0.
Yeah, okay. That gets one-sided quick.
Yeah.
We really probably need to start
quick.
putting second commanders into our lists.
Yeah.
Having
probably.
someone to take over the leader of your retinue is kind of important.
I think so, yeah. Who's your vote for Dice Forsaken this month, Jackson?
Look, I was having a bit of a think about it, and I played a game against a friend of the show, Yukio, and I'd put a unit of, it was a WTC prep game, so I actually can't give way too much details there. He put I had a unit of 7 veterans fairly forward on the table, and he put, and I can say what he was running because he isn't coming to Worlds, he put a squad of 7 vets with 5 submachine guns into them, Hanamag, an officer with 5 section with 5 submachine guns, and the light autocannon off a Lux tank, it's a Panzer II Lux, into this unit, and there was still 1 man of the 7 left, and they were standing in the open, and they got shot at point blank.
That's just insane.
Yeah, so that 7-man squad of vets managed to soak up probably about 400 points worth of veterans shooting at it.
And yeah, I remember you saying they didn't have infiltrators.
They didn't have infiltrators. They didn't have any special rules to give them a cover. That's a lie. The officer section had soft cover shooting at the unit. Okay. But that is like, he still put a squad of 7 guys and a Hanamag and a tank and the officer section into the unit, and there was still 1 man left. Yeah. And he needed pretty much 2s or 3s to hit with everything.
Nuts.
Yeah.
Says something for the strength of vets in bolt action at the moment.
Yeah, they are pretty good. So, yeah.
Yeah.
And also, Yukio's 4 dice rolling.
I was going to say also Yukio's dice rolling.
Yeah. So, no.
Yeah. What is it we always say, Jackson?
Yeah. Jono, play better.
Or blame your dice.
And this time, there was some dice blaming to be had. So, yeah.
That's right.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you for joining us tonight.
Thank you, everyone.
Next episode, we're going to play things by ear. When we'd normally record, I will be away at the start of my trip away to Europe for WTC. You can expect probably some updates on that, either live from the event or after, in a bit of a debrief type format from me at some stage, probably just myself. But we'll play things by ear as to whether we do an episode over that time while I'm away in Europe. Obviously, the time difference is 6 or 7 hours. It gets a bit awkward to record. And yeah, so we're going to play that by ear. We'll probably advise closer to that month, closer to May, what we're going to do about that, and just put a post up on the Facebook page and go, it's all Jack's fault.
Yeah. Yeah. Or I might get my act into gear and do a quick solo episode or something.
That'd be really cool to do a solo episode. Maybe you could try out your camera rig and do a hobby type side for the YouTube side of things.
Maybe. Apparently I've got some Brits to paint.
You've always got Brits to paint. Whether they're medieval Brits or they're actual World War II Brits or they are some other form of Anglo-Saxon. Anyway, guys, thanks for joining us tonight. We'll see you around. Ta-ta for now.
See you next time.
Did I just do the ta-ta for now?